the tape that John referred to, he just told me off the side there that any portion that I'm involved, they can do a great editing job, so you won't have to listen to me, so I just thought I'd tell you that. Red Robinson's going to have a couple of words now, more than a couple, I hope. But anyway, and John alluded to this, that the memory of getting together when we let it go too long shouldn't happen. And Red has put together the RPM group of people, the senior broadcasters of this whole market, and they meet on a regular basis. And he's going to talk about that because he wants to initiate a program where Jack is enshrined in many, many ways. So, folks, one of the dean of the broadcasting, the DJs, Mr. Sinatra's best friend and everything else, Red Robinson.
Thank you, Seb. As I look around the room here, I can't believe who's turned out. Brian Forrest, Frosty, last night made comments about, being a kid listening to Cullen. I think we both did because we're contemporaries. You followed me, what, a year later after I got started, Brian? You don't remember? Boy, I thought the 70s were bad. Now I know they were. But anyway, nice to see you here. And last night, I couldn't understand, but things go awry. A guy that Jack was very, very fond of, Dave McCormick back there. Dave, terrific guy, and he loved you. And so many other people. Jerry Landa back there, who was one of at Seafund in the days when Brian and I were there and all of us. You're clapping for yourself, I'm glad, because I didn't hear much. It's funny what goes through your mind, and this setting is perfect for Cullen. It's not formal, it's not morbid, it's uplifting, because he's an Irishman. Lorne and I were saying, the Irish have wakes, which is, celebrate a life. And that's what we're doing here. Let's have some fun and remember Jack. There's no script, you notice that? The man on the screen behind me never had a script in his life. And if he did, there was a radio show I never knew about on CBC that he did, according to 7 people last night, that failed because they gave him a script. What? Script? So he had lived his way through failure, and they realized they'd goofed. Jack was Jack. He wasn't going to be anybody else. But a wonderful man and an inspiration to me, and I just want to tell a couple of personal stories, because that's all you can do under the circumstances. You know his history, you know about the vast record collection, you know all of the benchmarks the man created. And so I just wanted to kind of reminisce about what he did for me. I was a kid about 12 or 13, and I was listening to the radio, and this guy was magic to me. As I said last night, here was a radio guy going up Grouse Mountain on the chairlift broadcasting. And I gotta admit, when I got into business, I emulated that. I went underwater in a hard hat outfit off the Second Narrows Bridge, and the whole time I was thinking about Cullen, Would he do this? You're damn right he would, And it was all of that kind of thing that was theater of the mind, as Brian Forrest, Frosty Forrest always says, and it's true. He got our imaginations going. And every one of us in this room who's behind the microphone owes a debt to Cullen for the ability, don't mind me, of ad-libbing, and if you ever played music, you knew that this guy was dedicated to the art. And so everyone, Brian, myself, Jerry Landa, Dave McCormick, all of us owe a great deal to this man. Now, I mean, he had good times and bad. He had ups and downs, and he would love this crowd. It reminds me so much of House Street. At about 11:30 at night, you couldn't get in the joint without a bottle of rum. That was your admission price. But what parties went on, what a good time. And the guy never missed a cue. He would have the mic on and say, just a minute. Frank Marshall, would you pass me, this kind of thing. Where else would you hear that on radio? The guy was amazing. And I want to tell you, when I was competing with Jack, when I started out playing rock and roll, he played rock and roll too. As a matter of fact, he booked some of the R&B acts in those days at the Old Gardens. And Murray Goldman became his partner for a lot of those shows. But in the summer of 1956, in June, Jack and Murray had booked the first rock and roll concert in the city at the Kerrisdale Arena. And so, I thought, oh my God, here I am competing with the king of the DJs, and he's bringing in Bill Haley, and rock and roll is my number. Anyway, Murray and Jack bought ads on my show on CJOR, and Vic Waters over there, he'll remember that. And then one day I get a call, and he says, Red, it's Jack. Well, I said, hi, Mr. Cullen. He said, no, call me Jack. He said, listen, I said, by the way, Bill Haley, can I go backstage and get an interview? And he said, of course, but that's not why I'm calling. Now, remember, this is my competitor. He said, I wonder if you'd MC the show. That's Cullen, Mr. Generous. But now another story about him in that same period when I was at CJOR in 1956. Jack had a habit of taping the Ed Sullivan Show every week, and there was this new singer called Elvis Presley. And I couldn't do what he did. He took a TV set, hooked up a thing, and then cut a record of, whatever Elvis sang that week. And I would get the phone calls. Hey, we're listening to Cullen last night. He played Ready Teddy with Elvis. Have you got it? And I'm going, no, I don't have it. No, I haven't. So I had enough of this. So a lot of kids used to hang around the little studio opposite the Grosvenor Hotel on Howe Street. And I said to one of the kids, here's $1. That's all a record was in those days. I said, I want you to go down to Cullen's record store. And I want you to buy Ready Teddy with Elvis, and don't tell him where you're from. So the kid brings back the record, and I'm anxious. So I go, okay, here we go. That record you've been asking for, Ready Teddy with Elvis. And the record, ready, set, go, man. And it goes, the song goes, and in the middle you hear, hi, this is Jack Cullen. You can buy this record at Cullen's record store. It's true. Last night on the air I said he was a rascal, but he was never nasty. He was never a nasty man. And what a memory. You know the old thing about, I think John Mackey wrote about it. John over here at the Sun. And by the way, John, thank you for that tribute to Jack in the Vancouver Sun. 2 pages. Thank you, John Mackey. Right there, ladies and gentlemen. But I think he touched on all of those antics that Jack did in those days. But that's what made him different and unique. And all of us have tried since to emulate that and try to, do our own version of it. The secret with Cullen was Cullen. But one day I'm out in the studio and I got to know Al and Jack. When I did, remember you say, what would I say, where are you going? We're going on another cruise, Red. Alma would say, another cruise. This time we're going down the Amazon River. And I said, well, terrific, have a good time. She says, I hope so. I hear there are crocodiles and other things. Anyway, Al was always a delight. But I'd fill in for Jack. And he said, well, what are you going to do it at your house? Because I have a studio too. And I said, no, you've got the library. This is your show. I'll come down here and do it out of your show. So he would show me around. And while I was in there, a lot of my memories of my childhood came back to me. I said, oh my God, have you got this? Have you got that? And the miracle of Jack Cullen was he could go down this row of 300,000 records and go, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Ah, there it is, and pull it out. Sometimes inside the sleeve were pictures that were a little racy, but never mind. He always knew where the records were. The man had an amazing memory. Anybody phoning him, or any guest, as I was going to say, another thing John Mackey mentioned, Nat King Cole. I don't know if you read the article or not, but Jack is sitting with Nat King Cole, and he says, I've gone back over your career, and I loved your early recordings in 1946. And Nat Cole says, no, 1948. Cullen says, no, 1946. And he says, I think you're mistaken, Jack. He says, no, just a minute. And he grabs them, and Nat King Cole's jaw drops and says, you're right, I'd forgotten. But Jack Cullen never forgot. I mean, the man was an amazing walking encyclopedia. And I know today he would be proud. I was kidding about the Howe Street thing and then out of Brentwood. And one of the things RPM is doing, and what is RPM? It's a non-profit, nobody makes any money. But I just thought all the people in broadcast should get together and just be a kind of a fraternity. The sports community has it. Neil McRae's there. He's an exception. He's not part of that. But anyway, you're always zinging everybody. You'll go away and say Red was C+. And Frosty will say Red who? And it'll all be fun tomorrow morning. Kind of remember me from another time. But seriously, RPM was just a concept at Rick Honey's funeral. When a bunch of us got together at the reception and said, as Seb has earlier, why do we only get together for retirement parties? And God knows I've had 5 or funerals. You know what I mean? So this Jack would be pleased with all of this here, because he came to RPM with another great icon of the past, Monty McFarlane, who sadly I have to report, it doesn't look good for him. He's over in Lions Gate right now. And how long has he been there, Neil?
4 weeks.
4 weeks. These are great curmudgeons from another time. May I tell that one story Arlene told me? Sure. She says the fire truck came a couple weeks back, 4 weeks ago. They came to his apartment for the third or fourth time to take him away. And as he's on the stretcher, whatever you call it, he looks up and says, "You know what, guys? This is my third time out of here, or fourth, whatever." He said, "I'm going to bring out little punch cards, and when you get 5, you get a free coffee." Here's a man in poor condition, and he does that. This guy in poor condition, and he does that. This guy was the same. I was out to see him, and I know John Tanner was too. The love of Jack Cullen knows no bounds. But he was there, and I said, "Jack, you know, I hate to see you like this." And he said, "Red, you know, I did everything my way. I smoked, I drank. I've had such a great life, and I can't believe it. I'm going to be 80." And I said, "Yeah, what's your secret? You know, it's amazing." But the key to what I just told you is that he said, "I've had a good life." He wouldn't want anybody running around worrying and doing anything morbid, because if the tables were turned right now, he would do this too. He would want this kind of a thing for me. I would want this kind of a thing, and he would get up and do that. What more can I say, ladies and gentlemen? This was a man we loved. One line I used last night, it's not a line because everything is from here, I didn't write anything, is that Jack Cullen was a rascal. I think that's a good word if you look it up. He was a rascal, but never nasty. Never nasty. I mean, as a competitor, I want to tell you, he had more brass than, I'll fill in the blanks, but he did. He had more brass. If you wanted to do an interview and somebody was down at the Queen Elizabeth Theater, I could just about be ready to put the mic into the face of Tom Jones, and he'd say, "I'm Jack Cullen, you're on, I'm gonna," bang. But never vicious, never cruel, always the competitor. And I'm gonna miss him. Good night, Jack. And I do mean good night, Jack, because you ever listen to his closing, it was always good night, see you tomorrow on the Owl Proud. Seth had a great idea, and because we're all friends here in one way or another, and the public that have shown up that just came because of loving this man's radio program and loving the man himself, if any of you want to come up and say a couple of words in your own way about Jack Cullen, I think it would add to what happens at an Irish wake. Dave or John or any of you that I don't know, Jack McMillan over there just retired, maybe your last words before you check out. There's a guy I went to school with, Jack McMillan. I went to his retirement party the other night, and Jack and I went to King Ed together. Can I tell a quick story? He sat across from me in study hall, and Jack would say, and he was sort of a laid-back kind of a guy, great personality, but he would say, "How can you play that crap on the radio? I listen to Cullen, I hear Sinatra, I hear June Christie. Who the hell's Little Richard? Who's Bill Haley? And who's this other guy? Presley, whatever." But Jack, so nice to see you here. And have a happy retirement. Jack McMillan, Senior Vice President of camcorder. If anybody wants to come up here, yes, please just come up. I also would like to ask Senator Lawson, who phoned me just yesterday, heard about this, and said, "I'm flying in from Ottawa." Ed, would you come up and say a few words about Jack? Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Ed Lawson.
Anyway, Red and I have a mutual friend who's a musician. Touring South America, comes across a giant talking bird that spoke 5 languages, including French. His mother lives alone in Victoria, and she's learning the language, and he talks about all their terrible things for his opposition to the Charlottetown Court Rafe Mayor. And I thought, there is someone who's not likely to receive it, but is deserving. So I nominated and presented one to him. And then we were thinking about it, of all the times that we had listened late at night to Jack Cullen. And as Bill Hughes said, here's a legend. Half a century, and so on. And I wanted it to happen while he was here. And also I wanted to go and watch Sev Cry again. And so Seb went with us, and we did it at the studio. We presented the company and helped her with the language. We paid $5,000 to give her at home. Finished the musical tour. About 2 months later, goes to see his mother. And he said, "Mother, did you get the bird?" She said, "Yes, I did." He said, "Well, how was it?" She said, "It was delicious." He said, "No." He said, "How could you? I paid $5,000 for that bird. He spoke 5 languages, including French." She said, "Well, I guess he should have said something." So that's what I hear. Anyway, and that's difficult to get here. We're standing in the lineup at the hotel, checking in. And there was a lady in the next line that I thought I recognized, and she looked up and caught me looking at her, and I said, "Forgive me if I appear to be staring, but you look like Alan Brown." She said, "You're not so hot and blue yourself." Why are women so angry? Then my golfing partner, who's a Supreme Court judge, who will remain nameless, he said, "Well, when you're in, pop on down, I'll be in the courtroom, and just wait until I finish." So he's in the courtroom, and there's a lady petitioning for an increase in her maintenance or alimony, and for good legal reasons, my judge friend denies her request. And over the process, her lawyer, she jumped up and she said, "You're a mean, stupid old judge." Well, there's a gasp in the courtroom. Is he going to cite her for contempt or clap her in irons? And my judge friend said, "You may be wondering how I'm going to respond to that lady's outburst calling me a mean, stupid old judge." He said, "On this occasion, I would ignore her remarks, because at best it was a lucky guess." But Jack Cullen, you may recall, for Canada's 125th birthday, they struck a medal. And they asked members of Parliament and the Senate and the House of Commons to nominate people that were worthy recipients, who had done something outstanding in their profession, in their community, in their province, in their country. And there's a usual list that almost kind of jumps up that should receive these. And so I sat down with my wife Beverly and said, "All right, let's look at people who deserve it but who have never been recognized." Well, a number of names came to mind. My friend Red Robson was one. I mean, here's an icon in rock and roll history and so on. And so I nominated him. Another one came to mind because at the time he was doing his talk show, the Prime Minister of the day said he was a traitor to the country and all kinds of other terrible things for his opposition to the Charlottetown Court, Great Mayor. And I thought, there is someone who's not likely to receive it but is deserving. So I nominated and presented one to him. And then we were thinking about it, of all the times that we had listened late at night to Jack Cullen. And as Bill Hughes said, here's a legend. You have half a century, and so on. And I wanted it to happen while he was here. And also I wanted to go and watch Seb cry again. And so Seb went with us, and we did it at the studio. We presented this to Jack, and if there was a time he was speechless, it was then. But it was an honor for me to make that presentation, and he was well-deserving, and I was very honored to be able to do it while he was still around. But one other little side, just a quick one. The days gone by, there was a lot of activity with Washburn and Webster when they were at the Georgia Hotel, and the in place was the coffee garden. And it was rare for Jack Cullen to come and have lunch with Washburn, and some was down there. But when he stepped into the elevator, Jack Cullen, he stepped in, swinging his arms around, and he bumped this woman in the breast with his right elbow. And of course, he's quick to get into trouble, as you know. He's quick to get out. And he said, "Oh, Madam, please forgive me, and I'm sure if the rescue is as soft as your breast, you'll forgive me." And she said, "Mr. Cullen, if the rescue is as hard as your elbow, I'm in room 927. Thank you for allowing me to share this occasion with Al and the family. And as Canadians, we hesitate or we're reluctant to recognize our great heroes and our great contributors. We're almost ashamed to do it. We shouldn't be. And that's why I was proud to do it on those occasions. And with someone like Jack Cullen, who, my God, his contribution, he deserved it. And I'm honored to share this day with you.
Send the material to me, Senator. I could use it. Very good. I would, and like I said, we want people to come up and say something, but Grace, would you like to say a couple words? Ladies and gentlemen, Grace McCarthy, the lady that has done more for this province than anybody I know of.
And watch Seb cry again. And so Seb went with us, and we did it at the studio. We presented this.
Very good. I would, and like I said, we want people to come up and say something, but Grace, would you like to say a couple words? Ladies and gentlemen, Grace McCarthy, the lady that has done more for this province than anybody I know of.
Thank you so much, Red.
We wouldn't be in this position if you'd been the premier, I'll tell you that.
Where were you when I needed you? Well, Elma and your family, I want to say from our family that our hearts are with you. I think it's a great tribute to Jack today that so many are here and have spoken from their heart, but have also spoken with such great humor, because that was Jack's life. He did have that sense of humor, and he knew how to convey to his audience humor, goodwill, always a kind heart, and
George Garrett, Rafe, of course,
and always gave something in every broadcast to all of those who listened, all of us who listened. I can remember my brother when he was quite ill, and the last 2 or 3 years of his life. And of course, there was all the attention was on television and so on at that time, and people would be talking about the programs that they would listen to. But the greatest joy that he had was to tune in to Jack, and Jack would take him through, my brother, through that evening yet again, and that touch that he had gave him comfort. It evoked memories of his past and the wartime and the times that he had enjoyed life in Vancouver as a young man, and that was a great gift that he had, not only to bring the music of our times and the music of our past times, but he had that great gift that he could communicate with people. And today, I think that all of the people who love him and are thinking of him, and those that are gathered here today, I know that they must all be thinking of your family and thinking of Jack and what he left with us. We are a great province, and we're a great country, and we're a great city. And we've been made greater by all of these tremendous communicators that we've heard from today, and the ones that are present that we will not hear from, and those that have gone on. They have been great spokesmen for us, great communicators for us, and we're the better for it. Thank you very much for giving us Jack for all that time and for all of your support.
Just a couple of faces that were looking around the room here too. Thank you, Grace. Very nice. She didn't know that she was going to be called upon. They called him Vancouver's Frank Sinatra, one of Jack's closest and dearest friends, Bobby Hughes, right over here too. Bobby, nice to see you here. If I'm missing people, it's just as my eye catches them. The man that preceded Rafe Mayer, Gary Bannerman, my neighbor. Gary, nice to have you here. George Garrett, Rafe, of course, and different people. Will Frey, who you were a contemporary there. Was your show called the DX Prowl? We got a little confused last night, I think. Rafe, of course, and a whole bunch of different people. Will Frey, who you were a contemporary there. Was your show called the DX Prowl? We got a little confused last night, I think. We'll got to get you up here. We'll get everyone up that wants to speak, but Michael Leader wants to say a few words. Michael, I wonder if you'd come up here, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Leader.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What a treat to be here. Back in the 60s, we had a company called Leader Sound, and among our clients was the broadcast industry, but Jack made broadcast history. It's great to be in this room with broadcast engineering talent like Doug Court, who for years, along with Jack Gordon, was the backbone behind precision engineering at CKNW. But something happened with a company in Europe called Philips, and you've all seen one of these. It's called the Philips cassette. Well, in 1965, when I met Jack, it was set up with Philips and our company to take a Philips battery-operated portable cassette recorder to the one and only Jack Cullen. They thought it would be ideal for Jack to do what? Smuggle it in and get all these wonderful recordings that we've enjoyed as listeners for years. I remember arriving in a late spring afternoon with the cardboard box under my arm and walking in. Mr. Cullen, I'm Michael Leader. Call me Jack. That big, warm smile. We unpacked the box, plugged it in. Jack plugged in the microphone. Looks at the microphone. He said, "What sort of dog biscuit is this? I wouldn't feed this to the top dog." Within about 20 minutes, Jack and I assembled a patch cord so we could plug in his very expensive broadcast microphones to this $100 cassette recorder. And boom, it burst into life. And all of you have heard the results of that recording. He says, "Damn, that's a recorder." Scoops everything up, throws it into a black bag, and later that day was over at Izzy's Supper Club, and I forget what it was he recorded, but that hit the air probably the next day. But what was so wonderful was a couple of years ago when Jack Gordon, the director of engineering for CKNW, was in my office, we were reminiscing over this, and Jack shook his head. He said, "Jack, yes, he knew how to break the rules, but you know he was a hell of an engineer, and he could get it together." And I remember when Jack looked at the recorder, and it wasn't much bigger than this book, ladies and gentlemen. He said, "I ran a wire on the air the other day." Wire meaning from a wire recorder. He says, "Hell, if I can run a wire on the air, I can run this." So ladies and gentlemen, that's one of the fond memories I have of my dear friend, Jack. I knew Jack as a gentleman and a gentleman. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Michael. The two records that Jack and I produced, one was